I wanted to start by sort of giving like a general understanding of your life, the book, and what I've read about you. I just wrote a little paragraph, so I wanted to read that out. And so just for everyone listening, I'm doing a podcast today with Dr. Dinesh Palipana, and this is my very first podcast. And I'm not too sure how this is going to go, but we're just going to try and have some fun. So, giving an introduction to Dr. Dinesh Palipana. He is an Australian doctor, lawyer, researcher, and a disability advocate. It was a dark, rainy night in January 2010 when Dinesh, a third-year medical student then, was driving back to Gold Coast after visiting his parents in Brisbane when his car aquaplaned on M1 highway. This catastrophic accident caused Dinesh to have a cervical spine injury, resulting in quadriplegia. Being halfway through his medical school, Dinesh was left with the fear and confusion of, will I ever become a doctor now? From the countless challenges that he faced in his personal and work life, Dinesh nonetheless returned to complete medical school. In 2016, Dinesh graduated as the first medical intern with quadriplegia in Queensland, a historic achievement. To get to this place in his life, Dinesh had to overcome many obstacles and adversities in his life. If you Google him, you'll come across many articles, interviews, and talks of his on YouTube, including his TED Talk, which I personally watched and loved. He recently also published his first book, aptly named Stronger, which I also listened to, and it was one of my favorite books that I've read. I've noticed that Dinesh's talks, his Instagram posts, and his books and his book Stronger carry themes of Stoicism. So I asked him if he would like to do a podcast with me, and he said yes. So here we are.
Yeah, and it took us a while, didn't it? It's been 2 years, you were saying, since we've been trying to do this.
Yeah,
and
that's
catch
right.
up. So I'm glad we made it.
Yeah. So, I think it was 2021 when we met here in Bond campus, and since then, I've asked you to have a coffee with me, and you've been a very busy man.
No, I'm honored, and thank you for reading the book. I'm glad you like it.
It was my pleasure, Dinesh. Thank you. And I do want to mention, Dinesh, in your book you do say that you're never busy. So. It's never a bit busy. Ironic when you say that you've been quite busy recently.
I mean, you were talking about Stoicism, and one of the key tenets of it is to focus on the things that you can control, right? And busyness is inherently something which implies that you don't have control.
Yeah.
So, when people, when sometimes you say, I'm so busy, it implies that I'm not in control of my life or what I'm doing. So I think busy for a number of reasons. I also think if I tell someone that I'm busy, which I don't, but I feel that I'm telling that person there's something more important than them.
Yeah.
And there's not. So
yeah. Yeah, and I think that's beautiful, Dinesh. Like, even when I was reading that exact idea in your book, rather listening to it, I thought that, just like you say, that you've sort of taken that word out of your vocabulary in a way that, we should mentally try and do that as well. That we should, instead of saying that I'm busy, you can say, well, this is a time that I'm free to do X, Y, and Z with you. So, I think it's a good way to like frame it in a different way, practically.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So in this podcast, Dinesh, I sort of wanted to take points from your book and sort of pick your brains about, certain things that I would like to further ask you, as well as certain themes from Stoicism, like memento, mori, amor, fati, that sort of resonate with you. So does that sound good?
Perfect.
Perfect. And if there's anything that I say that that's incorrect, please correct me where I'm wrong. And also, if you feel uncomfortable to answer a question or you want to cut it out from
It'll
the
be fine.
podcast, let me
It'll
know
be fine.
during the podcast. Yeah, perfect. So your life story, Dinesh, it sort of reminds me of the quote from "Obstacle is the Way." Marcus Aurelius has said in the past that the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. And Ryan Holiday uses this quote in his book. And I didn't see this being used in your book, but I feel like this just captures your life so well. So what do you make of this quote?
Yeah, no, I think it's great, isn't it? I mean, in either Ryan Holiday's book or Marcus, I don't remember. There's a story about a massive boulder that stands in the road, and the king hid a treasure under it. So all these people were walking around it. They were doing all these things, but I think someone ended up moving it, and they found the treasure under it. So I think the for my life too, there's been a couple of big things that happened. One was I had depression when I was studying law. And the other one was obviously the spinal cord injury that caused it. But both of these things, and both of them have been the hardest things that I've been through in my life. They've ended up becoming two of the biggest turning points that have been for the better.
Yep.
It was because of depression that I ended up finding medicine, because I started to see a doctor and I was inspired to become a doctor.
Yep.
And then through the spinal cord injury, I've discovered so much. Like, I've discovered myself. I've discovered what I'm capable of. I've discovered an appreciation for life. I've discovered all these things. So I think both of these things that would have been otherwise difficult have become key turning points that have really enabled me in my life. So yeah, I agree that I don't even know if it's fair to call them obstacles. I think they've instead become almost enablers or accelerators in a way.
I guess I sort of meant it more in a way that, you know, when that thing sort of happens to you in the moment, you feel that, you know, this is the worst thing that has ever happened. What's gonna become of me? What's gonna become of my career?
Yes.
But then later on, as you've realized yourself, it's perhaps not best to call it an obstacle.
Yeah, but when both of these things happened, particularly spinal cord injury, you're right, and you know, it's natural to feel that, right? That's a natural reaction. Like, this is so hard, and I don't know what's going to happen. And you know, the spinal cord injury in particular, it was so difficult. But over time, I think over time you change and you grow. And there's a key word that you mentioned. You said it happened to me, or it happened to you. But I think it happened for me now.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that's natural, right? When some of these things happen, I mean, yeah, it's hard as hell.
Yeah.
But we wouldn't be having this conversation if it didn't happen, right?
Yeah. That's a good way to look at it. Beautiful. So there's a lot of things that I have here that I want to talk about.
Go for it. Shoot.
I guess let me go to your book and chronologically make my way through your chapters so I can ask these questions in order. So since this podcast is about your life and Stoicism, there's the concept of memento mori that you mentioned in your book. And you say that it's a reflection on our mortality. This whole concept of memento mori. So I guess, can you talk more about this concept and how this relates to you, how you apply this to your life?
When I was going through depression, I think one of the manifestations of depression is a preoccupation with death, or you think about death a lot. And I thought about death a lot when I was going through depression.
Yep.
One of the things that it forced me to do was to think about how to live my life, because I thought, man, I was thinking about death, I'm thinking about dying, and I thought, how will I feel like I've lived a good life?
Yep.
So that just makes you work backwards and go, okay, I think it made me reevaluate life. And then I thought, okay, you know what? I need to do something where I feel like if I get to the end of my life and look back, I feel like I would have done something worthwhile. And I thought that something like that would be to do something for another person.
Yep.
And if I could make a change in one person's life in my own lifetime, I would feel like it's worth it.
Yeah.
So that's how I came to that is how memento mori, I suppose, even before I knew about the concept, made an impact on my life.
Yep.
Because we are mortal, right? And we're going to die one day. And we have to remember that when we meditate on our death, we think about how we want to live.
Yep.
So there's one thing that is certain, and that is death. And I always see people come to the ED as patients, and some of them sadly, tragically pass away. I've come here from work overnight, and someone was, someone had a pretty tragic incident last night, as they do many days when I'm at work. So I always wonder, would this person have done anything differently if they knew that this day was their last? What would they have done? How would they have lived their life? Did they hug their loved ones? Did they make the most of it?
Yeah.
Did they have regrets? So I think if we actually meditate on that fact, that we are mortal, and that our time on this planet is limited, and we don't know what will bring tomorrow, then I think it makes us appreciate and seize life more.
Yeah.
But when I had the car accident too, I was pretty badly injured, critically injured. So, even when I think about that now, I just think, okay, I've got to make the most of my life.
Yeah.
And that's what memento mori is.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. And do you think there's a balance we sort of need to find in that sort of a thinking where we meditate on our death versus actually living life? Like, as in, how do we meditate on death itself? Is that a thought that passes, is that a thought that we consciously contemplate every day, or is that something that we practice through action, as in not obviously not the concept of death, but is that in the way that we treat others? Is that a sort of an innate feeling inside of you that one day I'm going to die, and therefore I need to live my day to the best? What is the practicality of memento mori? How does that?
I think you think about the preciousness of life.
Right.
Yeah, because
Yep.
when you think about the fact that your life is limited, it makes you appreciate the day a bit more, right? Like every moment that you have, every day that you have. So I'm 38. Say I have a life expectancy of 80. So that would be another 42 years. 42 years. Might sound like a little bit, but if I say, okay, and I love summer, so I'm going to say I have 42 summers.
Yep.
And when you break it down like that, you're like, oh, damn, 42. 42 summers, that's not a lot, right?
Yeah.
That's actually not a lot. And when you put it down like that, you're like, okay, I need to make the most of each summer.
That's right.
I have 42 birthdays. I have 42 Christmases. I have 42, 42 of these things. So I think when you put it down like that, you're like, okay, I want to make the most out of the 42 because then my life might come to an end. But actually, even before then, my life might come to an end.
Yeah.
That's the big expectation. But what if I only have 20?
Yeah.
We don't know, right?
Yeah.
So that's a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you put it like that, you get one shot at life. So what are you gonna do with that? If you had $60 that someone gave you $60 and said, for the next month you're only going to have $60. You're going to spend those $60 pretty carefully, right? You're gonna really think about what you're gonna do with that 60 and you're gonna try and make the most of that $60.
That's right.
And you're gonna treasure it, but that's like time. And I think the biggest fallacy is that I think again it's Marcus Aurelius that says that we always complain about not having enough time, but it's also the one thing that we squander the most.
Yeah, that's right. Beautiful. All right, next thing that I would like to ask you about is your family relations in Sri Lanka, as well as your friends here. So in your book, you sort of talk about how you felt betrayed in a way, or used in a way by some of your relatives in Sri Lanka who were just there for the fact that you had money. And then you had your classmates here who were in the same year level as you before you had the spinal cord injury. But then once you returned to medical school and then you were in your intern year, they sort of looked down on you and were very dismissive. So like how does that make you feel?
How does that make you feel?
And
I think I was very frustrated initially, and I was angry, and I was sad, and I was disappointed. Like I was so many things.
Yeah.
But you just keep going. I just grit my teeth and keep going. I was like, you know what? It's okay. It's okay. I'm just going to keep going. Just going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. And those things are outside of my control, and it's nothing I could do about it, right? But the only thing I could control is that I keep going despite those things.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. Like I was so saddened by it sometimes. I was so disappointed and frustrated by it sometimes, but I kept going.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, it's some of those friends that are now, that now contact me the most.
Yeah.
Ironically.
Because Dinesh, the thing is that when I was reading those sections in your book, I just thought, I just felt really saddened by how human nature works. That, you could be friends with someone and then once they've lost their position in the society, you sort of just lose that friendship. So like, what's the point of having such friendships? I just like, not personal to you, but just a general fact of life that I was thinking about. But you mentioned something very beautiful in your book. You say, I wasn't so much interested in revenge, but coming back better than ever. So even after people have mistreated you, you don't want to go back and take revenge on them, right? You want to focus on yourself and become a better person through that.
Because that's the most important thing, right? Like everything else, like everyone else, it's transient and people come and go. But you need to be able to look in the mirror at the end of the day. You need to be a better person, and we have to. So I just wanted to be better from this. Yeah.
And there's a quote by Marcus Aurelius. He says, the best revenge is to not be like your enemy.
Exactly. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
otherwise you turn yourself into the thing that you hate the most, right?
Yeah.
Darth Vader.
Darth
Yeah.
Vader. And you don't want to be a Darth Vader. So you mentioned that when you were in Sri Lanka, you had, when you were spending time in that one room that you had time. And during that time, you read books and you used it to learn and grow. And that's the concept of a lifetime that Ryan Holiday mentions in his book. There's also dead time, in which you sort of squander away that time doing useless, meaningless things. So I guess what are your thoughts on a lifetime and dead time, and how do you think people can sort of learn from those concepts?
One of the best example that Ryan Holiday uses in his book is he talks about Malcolm X, and he says that Malcolm X was a petty criminal almost, and he ended up in jail. And jail's somewhere where you could just think, oh man, I'm in jail, like I just got to spend 10 years in here and do nothing and blah blah blah. But Malcolm X said that jail is where he felt the most free, and jail became his university because he read books and freed his mind, and it's where he became who he is. So that's an example of how someone used what is otherwise dead time to be a lifetime. So we all have that, right? Like when I had this situation recently where not recently, but a little while ago, where I had COVID and I was isolating. And this was a pretty scary time because my lung function's extremely poor. And COVID with the spinal cord injury could have meant some pretty poor outcomes. But what the hell could I do about it, right? I had it. So there's nothing I could do. There's also a time when I hadn't spent a lot of time to myself. But then I was like, you know what? I'm stuck in the house for 7 days. And I'm going to have a great time. Because what else could you do, right? So I had a great time. I played video games. I didn't do any
I do the same. I love playing Fortnite with my brother when I'm in Perth.
I was some movies. I got Uber Eats. Like, I was just having a great time. And it's not like it was still a scary thing and it was a dangerous thing, COVID. But I had to, I had to turn it around and make the most of it. But a lifetime, like, it's if you're in a situation where it's like, what am I going to do with this time? There is often a way to turn it around and make it into something positive or productive or something else. So
and I sort of had a follow-up question to that. So during your alive time in Sri Lanka, what were the sort of books you read and what were your learnings?
Everything. Like, I read books about business. I read books about like random topics like marketing. I read a book called Purple Cow, which was about marketing. I read a book called Lynchpin, which was about again, it's a business book. I read a book about Warren Buffett. I learned about investing. I read like religious texts, various religious texts. I read all sorts of books and just learned a little bit about the world. I read heaps of stuff. So it was on a variety of topics and a variety of different things. But I felt really hungry at that time to open my eyes. And it was funny, because I was stuck in a room most days. But I felt like I actually explored the world and learned the world the most during that time through all that.
Yeah, like you were physically stuck in that situation, but you were mentally liberated or free in that sense. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, I even read like books about art, books about wine. Just heaps of different things. Yeah,
and in fact, you mentioned Buddhism quite a lot in your book. In addition to Stoicism, and like what what role does Buddhism play in your life? If
Well, I
may
think
ask?
Buddhism is not really a religion, right? It's a set of ideas. It
That's
was
right.
never. I don't think it was ever intended to be a religion.
Yep.
And if you can draw so many parallels between Stoicism and Buddhism.
Yep.
Like attachment. Both of these philosophies say don't be attached to stuff because it
Yep.
leads to suffering. It says that everything is transient.
Mm.
So there's actually a lot of parallels between those two philosophies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then relating to that, I wanted to ask you a question regarding attachment, I guess. So how do you practice attachment in life? Detachment rather. So
Yeah.
so if attachment is the root of all suffering,
Mm-hmm.
according to Buddhism, then how do you practically apply that in your life?
Yeah. Since we're talking books, there's a book called Stuffocation, which is an amazing book. And it talks about how we accumulate too much stuff. So one of the things I do is try to minimize the amount of stuff I have.
Mm-hmm.
I have just 4 t-shirts that I wear. I used to have a bunch of watches. Now I just have one watch that I like.
Yep.
So I've just tried to minimize the amount of stuff I have in my life and not be attached to those things. So I think the attachment to things is one of the biggest problems.
Yeah, beautiful.
I'm also not attached to, I'm very grateful for where I've got to life at the moment. I feel very privileged. I feel very lucky. I'm very thankful. But I also know that these things are transient. And I make an effort not to be attached to that.
Mm.
Because I know everything could be taken away within a day. And it was taken away within
Yeah.
seconds.
Yeah.
So I think there are lots of practical ways in which we can reduce attachment in our life every single day. And it can just start with the amount of clothes we have in the closet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a very practical idea. In fact, I'll probably apply that in my life. Try and get rid of the things that I don't use.
And you feel free and you feel intentional, right? Because you think, I even had so many shirts.
Yeah.
I used to look in my cupboard and I'm like, and you feel a sense of weight
Yes.
when you see those, and then you're putting on your shirt and you're flicking through each of your shirts and like, okay, this shirt. I'm like, man, actually, I
Yeah.
only really like 2 shirts.
Yeah.
And if I had those 2 shirts, I'd be happy.
Yeah.
And why don't I just get rid of all these other shirts that someone else can enjoy?
Yeah.
So,
That's right.
yeah, letting go is so liberating. It's great.
Yeah. What about this idea in terms of relationships, say specifically romantic relationships?
Mm.
I know you're quite a guru in that. You could give some expert advice on how someone can be more detached in life.
What is love, right? So, I think if we're talking about relationships, I think love is about giving.
Yep.
And never not taking.
Yes.
So, when I think when it comes to a relationship, you just think about giving, and you think about, I'm just giving to this person. And I think good relationships are relationships where both people are like, I'm just going to give to the person I love.
Yeah.
But that also means that you're not, that the sense of attachment's different, because you're not expecting anything, you're not taking anything, you're not, and so it becomes like, I think that becomes a beautiful thing then.
Yeah. Indeed.
Because when you think about attachment, right, you're relying on the other person to give you something. And that's different.
Yeah, that's right. And I've sort of read and reflected on that sort of a concept myself as well, that I think love ideally should occur between 2 complete individuals.
I love that.
Right.
Yes.
Someone who is able to be happy with themselves alone. Right. And then when both, and same with the other individual that they get involved in the relationship. And when these individuals come together, it's not 0.5 comes with 0.5 and makes a 1. It's that 1 plus 1 is making a 2, right? So the sum is greater than
Yes.
greater than the individual, or
I love that.
yeah. So yeah.
And I think if your cup is full and it's overflowing, then you can give that to another person, and it's very different. Whereas you're not taking from another person to fill your own cup.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah. Now there's another thing you mentioned in your book about choosing humility over hubris.
Oh yeah.
And I had to look up the word hubris because I didn't know what it meant. But hubris means excessive pride. Is that right?
Arrogance. Yeah.
Arrogance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Particularly in medicine, huh?
Yeah, let's talk about that because I've got a few questions about that.
But I think, it's what destroys people, I think.
Yeah.
Because you got to be humble, and you got to realize that we're all fallible, we're all human beings, we're not above anyone else, and it can all be taken away within seconds. Again, it's like that transience, and so I think arrogance is one of the historically we've seen so many famous figures have their downfall because of hubris and arrogance.
Yeah.
And even big companies, right? Like Blockbuster Video. We always hear the famous example where they turn Netflix away because they think it was a joke, but that was hubris. Because they thought they were it, and that nothing else would come.
Yeah.
And now there's not a single Blockbuster. I think there's one Blockbuster left in there.
Yep.
So I think hubris is extremely risky.
Mm-hmm.
I think hubris is it makes you vulnerable, whereas humility doesn't. So humility is really important.
Yeah. And how do you practice that in your life? How do you practice humility?
I remind myself, man. I remind myself every day that I'm not above anyone else. And like, if anyone ever reaches out to you, if anyone ever needs help, I needed help once, and people helped me. You just got to remember that, you were once. So going back to medicine, I was talking to a friend just this morning, actually, because some of my colleagues were talking about what a burden it is to have a medical student or an intern.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a sec, man, you were a medical student once.
Yeah.
And then when I came back to medical school and I was a medical student, and one of my friends have graduated and become registrars, I remember one of them saying, "Oh man, nah, I just don't like having medical students around," and she told me not to be around, essentially. So you got to think like, I was a medical student.
Yeah. No, that's right.
And things can fall apart any day, right? You can't have arrogance and hubris like that.
Yeah. And it's something that I think about as well, like in my own time, that, they say that that power corrupts. So like, what is it that makes someone achieve to get that status, to reach that state of power, but then still stay virtuous, still stay humble in that sense? One of the examples that we look at is that of Marcus Aurelius, that 2,000 years ago in the Roman Empire, we had this emperor who was ruling for 20 years. He had all the power in the known world. He had the material wealth. He had the military power. He could have done anything he wanted. Yet you see him reflecting in his journal on the concepts such as memento mori, about things that you can control and you can't control. So he's able to pull this off for 20 years. He's able to remain good in that position of power, right? He's able to remain good in that position. I often wonder, that's such a hard thing to do. How do you do that?
The philosopher king.
Yeah.
I think it's practice, right? You got to remind yourself every day. You got to be grateful for the things you have. Like it's a combination of things.
Yeah.
That makes you that way. But I think that kind of humility and, not being too good for anything is where it is. But you do have to remind yourself every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like a muscle that you have to train every day. It's right.
Yeah, the moment I think you try to exert unnecessary power over someone, or think that you're better than someone, or think that someone's beneath you, I think that's when you fall apart.
Yeah, that's right. And there's a quote that I hung up in my room back in Perth. It says, if you compete with others, you become bitter. But if you compete with yourself, you become better.
Yeah, I love that. That's good.
So, and I feel like when you compete, when you start, harboring the mindset of competing with yourself versus comparing your lives with others, then you can sort of detach yourself from the lives of others and focus on yourself. And in a way, in that sense of detachment, you can self-actualize with humility and whatnot. But I think it's an exercise. It's a mental exercise that we need to have within ourselves every day.
Agreed.
To remind ourselves that we're not going to be alive forever.
Agreed.
Next question. So, already asked you. Let's talk about, on the concept of life, the principle of amor fati.
Mm-hmm. So that's love what happens to you, or love your fate. And I think sometimes it's really hard to see, right? Sometimes things happen to us and it's very difficult, and you suffer and you think, oh man, why did this happen?
Yeah.
But eventually, I think as hard as it is, sometimes you just learn to rephrase it and learn to reframe it to think, okay, this actually happened for me. Man, if the depression didn't happen for me, I wouldn't have become a doctor, and I wouldn't be here. If the spinal cord injury didn't happen for me, that book that you talked about wouldn't be on the shelf. So I think while it's been so hard, I think a lot of things happened for me. And I think there are things that happen for us, and we can flip that script where we take the power away from, the two, and we take the power by saying for. Then it makes a world of difference. And that's amor fati.
Yeah. And just to clarify, when you say it happened for you, you're not saying that in like a narcissistic way, that this happened for me. Like, you're saying that more in the sense that it was outside of your control. It's something that happened.
Exactly.
Like, it's something outside of your control. You accept it and you sort of make the best of what the life gives you.
Yeah.
So my next thing was actually, I wanted to discuss this idea of attachment with regards to social media.
Oh, yeah.
So you mentioned in your book, let me pull up.
I got rid of it all.
Because I love it. Yes, I wanted to ask you. I put you on the spot.
Yeah. No, it's true. I mean,
so you say in your book, even though we are more electronically connected than ever, we are disconnected as people. So... Yeah, and you've written a beautiful piece on that. But just that quote in itself, it's beautiful.
Because we are more lonely, aren't we? Like, I mean, we got all these means of staying in touch. But like, the funny thing is, how often do you see two people at a dinner table at a beautiful restaurant and both of them on their phones? What is that?
Yeah, right.
Well, I don't understand that when you're in front of each other.
Yeah.
But you choose to be on your phone.
Yeah.
That is, I don't get that.
Yeah.
So, I think we just seem to be more alienated and more distant, really, and more distracted by these electronic things than making real human connections and talking, like you said, when you just went to India and put away all your devices and social media and you felt you had a great time.
Yeah.
But just that being present and being in the moment and soaking in everything that's around us and soaking in the people, we just don't do that as effectively anymore. I think, social media is a particular distraction.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you, since you're such a big influencer on social media, you're posting stories every day, you're very active with regards to Stoicism. It's very important to sort of retain that side, because it's what you stand for as well. You're a disability advocate. You're someone who, I guess, is an embodiment of the ideas of Stoicism. So it's important to spread good ideas as well on social media.
Exactly, and that's what it's great for.
Right. Yeah. So how do you sort of achieve that balance? How do you stay electronically disconnected in that sense and remain connected to people when you're in that sort of a position?
Again, I think my time on social media is actually very limited every day.
Oh, is it?
We're talking like 10, 15 minutes.
Oh,
max.
really? Is that it? Wow.
Yeah.
You do a lot in 10 to 15 minutes. Very productive.
Max.
Yeah.
And so that is...
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, so I might just jump on, do that, and then, that's it. But it's actually very, very little time to spend on it.
Beautiful. Okay. I wasn't trying to corner you or anything.
No. I love that. It's important. I think we got to talk about this stuff, right?
Yeah. But so my intention was just to understand, how, seeing people in our society, just like you said, you see people on the same dinner table, yet they're on their mobile phones. I'm sitting in the public transport. Rarely do I ever see someone like, I don't know, reading a book or like doing something else on their phone. If they're on their phone, most likely they're on Instagram, Facebook, Messenger.
But how beautiful is the world?
But so
you should have been a lawyer. That was a very good line of questioning.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm not a debater. That's why.
No, it's good. It's good.
Yeah. So the way that you say things in your book, Dinesh, it's just so beautiful. Like the way that you simplify things and integrate it with quotes. And this isn't a question on here, but it was just a question I had personally. So you talk about using language simply so that someone can understand, right? So like, how did you learn the skill of being simple?
Books. I actually read a couple of books on that very topic.
Yeah.
Keeping things simple. Books are amazing, right? They have so many ideas, and I think there's no other medium in which you can get that much sort of food for thought.
Yeah.
But it was once said that simplicity is the highest form of elegance. Why do we complicate things? And sometimes it's part of arrogance, it's part of hubris.
Yeah.
Because when you simplify things, you can connect with everyone, right? But when you make things more complex, perhaps it's to keep things away from everyone or to make ourselves look more intelligent, perhaps. Yeah. But no, simplicity is important. And even if it's, whether you're talking about engineering or medicine or writing or communication, simplicity is the highest form of elegance.
Yeah.
And just keeping life simple and keeping everything straightforward, I think, makes a lot of sense. So, but it was in books that I've read. I actually specifically once read a book on writing. I forgot what it was called, but the author was Paula LaRocque.
Yep.
And it was something like How to Write Well or something.
Yeah.
But in that book, she just goes, now take a sentence, cut every unnecessary word out of it, then cut it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just learn to keep it short.
Yeah.
Learn to keep it simple.
Yeah, and that's probably a really useful skill as a medical student and as a
Exactly.
doctor, you know, giving isbars to or handovers
Exactly.
to the doctors. I know I've had a few experiences with certain doctors where, you know, I start telling a story and then they cut me midway and say, stop, start again, make it shorter. So, yeah, I think I'll have to learn that. Okay, next question. So, you say in your book that you've been lucky enough to have a life filled with moments that took your breath away.
Yeah.
What was the last moment that took your breath away?
Just trying to think what I did this week.
Oh, it was this week.
I'm sure. There's
You can say this podcast.
exactly this podcast.
Ah.
Actually, you know what, Gobin? It's the gift you got me today.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Just the thought behind it and the photo of me and my mum.
Yeah.
That was that took my breath away.
Oh, thank you, Dinesh. Yeah, so just to talk about the photo, that the whole idea behind it was that I guess you mentioned in your book that how your mum was your pillar of strength along your journey, and she was I think you mentioned in your book the only star in your life at one point that was shining. So I really felt that you know, the best gift to give someone is to, I guess, along that the line of the quote, is to make it memorable, and you know, your mum means so much to you, so I wanted to make it special for you.
I love it,
especially given that next week is Mother's Day.
Yes.
Right. So yeah, glad that you liked it. Thank you. You mentioned in your book, true happiness comes from looking outwards.
Well, again, it's going back to that concept where we talked about relationships, two people being complete. But I think, you know, if we're empty, we're always trying to take. You know, we're always trying to take money or status or goods or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think to be really happy, when we're complete, we just start to give out. And we make the world a better place, and we do something for someone else that makes them smile. That's actually true joy.
Yeah.
So I think happiness comes from looking outwards about what we can do for the world, what we can do for each other.
Yeah. I think it's easier said than done, though, right? Because how would you say to someone, like, how would you practically achieve that in life?
Just do something nice for someone every day.
Yeah.
Like, or do something altruistic.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much, right?
See, altruism is a very interesting concept. So I looked this up on the internet once, and people think that there is no such thing as true altruism, because there is always something to gain even from a selfless action. When someone is volunteering, they're still gaining the sense of happiness within themselves, right? Yeah. So
absolutely.
Right. And so someone could truly be really depressed, and then they're going out and volunteering, and maybe some people see that as selflessness, maybe someone else sees that as pure selfishness because they're volunteering and they're trying to make themselves more happy. But I think I feel like, though, the concept of altruism, which Ryan Holiday, I think, talks about in one of his books, he defines a champion, I think, as someone who is able to give someone something without personal gain. Yeah. Right. And I think that's what we're talking about. Yeah. Right.
A hero.
A hero. That's right.
Said,
a hero. Yes.
Yeah. That was actually That was actually done in a talk by an emergency physician
Yeah.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What a hero is.
Yeah. So I think that's just an ideal that that is something that everyone would love to achieve one day. But with regards to like becoming more complete in life, I think actions is one that's a very good thing. Doing good things for others with our personal gain. But I think it's also important to self-reflect as well.
Yeah, totally.
And yeah, like read books, use that alive time to learn and grow. So towards the end of your book, there's a quote that's mentioned. It says it's by Marianne Williamson, that our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. So yeah, what do you make of that, Dinesh?
We are scared sometimes, right? Like when we have that purpose that we find, we're scared to go for it. Like, and a part of it is, what if I fail?
Yeah.
What if I stumble? What if I do this? But like, actually, we have to really be courageous and brave and do that thing and to let our light shine, because not only do we benefit from it, but the world benefits from it. So we have to be fearless in going about that.
And how, like, was there something in your life that you sort of realized that, like a point in your life where you felt that it was your light, not your darkness, that most frightened you? And like, what was it?
I think it was, I had to put the fear away of like, getting back to medical school, for example.
Yeah.
And I had to put the fear away of like, and I actually, I can do this and I can. So it was a combination of things though. A set of circumstances and a set of events that led me to that point.
Yep. Cool. That's all the questions from the book that I had.
Awesome.
Now, I think I just wanted to talk to you sort of about the medical system as you as we were talking about before. So
yeah.
You mentioned this idea. Now I'm going back to the book again. You mentioned this idea of having a flat hierarchy in emergency medicine versus having like a toxic hierarchy, which can establish itself in other parts of healthcare, medical care.
Yeah.
So, what is a flat hierarchy for people listening, and how can we sort of achieve that across medicine?
It's approachability, right? Like even in where I work in the emergency department, we still call the senior doctors by their first name.
Yep.
But we still have that respect for and deference to their seniority and so that's still noted.
Yep.
But it works really well because there's a culture of trust. You can go to anyone for questions, and you work together so well. And there's a sense of wellness around that, and the patients benefit as well because there's no delay. But if there's a culture of fear where, some departments, you still call the seniors by Dr. blah, 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 and they're never to be called directly on the phone or things like that. And that causes a sense of fear, and the patients suffer at the end of the day because a decision might be delayed.
Yep. So
a flat hierarchy is actually, it creates more trust, and it's better, and it's better performance and more wellness. And I think that's what we need to strive for.
Yep. Yeah, I see. So what is it about emergency medicine, would you say, that makes a flat hierarchy? Why isn't it that other...
I don't think all emergency departments and all emergency medicines like that. I think it's our department specifically, because it's the leadership, and the leadership is very, very, very good, and they've created that culture.
Yep. So Let's talk about spinal cord research.
Yeah.
So there's this idea of sorry, before I go into this, is it okay if we delve away from the concept of Stoicism?
Mm-hmm.
Is there something that you wanted to add
that's
yourself, or you wanted to ask me? No.
That's good.
So I just have some free-flowing questions that I wanted to ask you, based on like the modern life that we live in. So there's this concept of brain-computer interface.
Yeah.
And in your book, you talk about spinal cord research.
Yeah.
And biospine, your own research.
Mm-hmm.
So what's biospine about, and what do you think about the idea of brain-computer interface?
Yeah, so biospine is a spinal cord injury research study, and it looks at using brain-computer interfaces, so taking signals from your brain using a headset and translating them into movement by activating your arms and legs through electrical stimulation, and using virtual reality and some drug therapy. We've seen that in some early studies that it's helped the spinal cord to rewire and help get people function back.
Yeah.
So that's what we're working on.
And it's quite interesting, isn't it, Dinesh, that so we used to think about neurons as permanent cells that don't regenerate. But now we have this emerging area of medical field where we're seeing that with a certain antidepressant in this case.
Exactly.
With a combination of BCI,
Yeah.
we can achieve regeneration of neurons in spinal cord injury. Is that right?
Yep.
So, I wanted to ask you specifically that I saw one of your videos where you're cycling.
Yep.
Is that right? Was that biospine?
Yeah, it was.
And is that something that has been trialed on patients, or you've tried yourself, which has
both.
shown effect in?
We're early phases at the moment, but we're optimistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't want to say too much about the research. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. But yes, both of those things, me and patients.
Yes, perfect. Now, I'm actually interested in the ethics around brain-computer interface. So there's this company called Neuralink, Elon Musk's company.
Yeah.
So Elon Musk mentions in one of his interviews that the ultimate purpose of the Neuralink chip is to achieve symbiosis with AI.
Yep.
Right. And we're seeing that in today's world, we have ChatGPT, and it's already so hard to handle the AI and the whole concept of ChatGPT, which is sort of affecting many spheres of life as it is, but it's supposedly going to take, there's a fear that's going to take over jobs. It's going to affect our creativity as individuals to the point that we're actually going to rely on it.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, it's sort of believed that this competition that we're going to have with AI obviously being superior in intelligence to humans, that the only solution to this problem, as Elon Musk proposes, is to achieve symbiosis with AI.
Yeah.
Like, do you have any fears about that aspect of BCI, being a researcher yourself in that field?
That's just the world and technology going forward. So I think we've always been fearful of stuff. We're fearful of computers. We were fearful of electric vehicles. We're fearful of the year 2000. We're generally fearful of things that are unknown and new to us.
Yep.
But no, just like everything else historically, we'll learn to adapt with this as well.
Yep. Cool. One of the comments that I was seeing with regards to this was one ethicist believes that we're going to evolve from being Homo sapiens to being Homo sapien technologicus.
Which is, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe we already are, Who
knows? And that's okay. Like, we've always changed. Once upon a time, we didn't have the wheel. Once upon a time, we didn't have the fire.
Yeah.
But we've come this way. It's just that we're doing it in a more accelerated fashion now. But that's humanity. We're always afraid of things that are unknown.
Yeah. And in that regard, what would you say is your goal, to your personal goal to like?
Well, with Biospine, it'd be to have function of the legs and
Yes.
hands again. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you? I had a question about neuroplasticity in that sense. Have you noticed that since you had the accident in 2010, that you have experienced neuroplasticity yourself, or regained function?
Some small things, nothing big.
Yeah.
But some small things, yes. And I think we just need to learn about how the central nervous system can rewire itself and under the right triggers.
Yep.
Which we're still learning about, I think.
Yep. Sure. Great. I think that's it, Dinesh.
Awesome.
We'll call the podcast to an
Great.
end. Do you have any concluding remarks to make?
No, look, I'm just grateful. It's been so good to chat to you.
It's been really great to chat with you too, Dinesh. Thank you so much for coming. I really
No worries,
appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
Fun. Woo. Good stuff. Congratulations. First podcast.